The Nuggets go to work in a bounce back performance versus the Bulls. We break it down and look at what a game from Michael Porter Jr. All that and more on Locked On Nuggets.
You are Locked On Nuggets, your daily Denver Nuggets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Nuggets, your daily Denver Nuggets podcast, part of the Locked On Network, your team every day. Thanks for making this your first listen. We appreciate it. We're available on all platforms, including YouTube, where you can join the show and join folks joining in the conversation, as we always reference on the show. Lots of folks that hang out with us every weekday between 9 o'clock and 10 o'clock, sometime in that range. Mountain time. Appreciate you guys being with us. Want to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA. My name is Matt Moore. I'm the senior NBA writer for the Action Network, joined by Adam Mares. He is director of content over at DNVR. You can find his work on Twitter at Adam_Mares. And check out the DNVR pre- and post-game shows before and after every Nuggets game. It's an absolutely fantastic watch with the fellas. I enjoy it. I try and catch as many as I can. Adam, it's Optimism Monday, and it's going to be an easy Optimism Monday because, boy, the Nuggets bounced back from that loss to the Celtics and went to work versus the Bulls.
Yeah, they did. Denver looked good. Chicago looked bad. I think both of those things happened simultaneously for this to be a laugher.
Yeah, and I mean, I think a lot of it was I love the Nuggets in this spot, and
what is the spot?
Like coming off. I in my experience, yeah, like it's the last game of a road trip. You are coming off of that kind of performance, and there's this idea of like, oh, it's a letdown. Like, I didn't think so. I'll say this. We talk a lot about the idea that the team embodies the spirit and personality and features of the best player. I think Jokic hates losing streaks. I think it's a thing that bothers him. I think as much as he's like, yeah, it's just another game. In my experience, he does tend to, after the first game after a loss, he tends to come out with an edge. And when the Bulls are going to make things as easy as they did with their defensive approach, they really got the ball popping.
That's the one thing about this. Like, you can't. I'm not taking anything away from Denver, but this was such a contrast to the Boston game from a physicality standpoint, a good defense, intensity, execution standpoint, that it's hard to compare. But nonetheless, you are right. Denver can't answer the Boston question until they play another team like Boston. All they can do is take care of business against teams. And if Chicago did not bring it, Denver was going to make sure that this game never really got close. Although I was looking at the game flow, and it did get within 4 points in the second quarter. It never really felt that bad. I know this bench unit kind of blew the lead or whatever, but Denver immediately, after it got down to 4, immediately pushed it back up to 15. But it is worth noting that in the second quarter, the Bulls had cut this game pretty close after Denver was up 15.
It's interesting that you felt that way, because I felt like the Bulls were one run away from it being.
They were. They were. To be clear, I agree with you. It's just that Denver opened it so quickly after that. It was like 4, and then it was 12 2 minutes later. So it didn't linger at that moment.
A lot of good stuff to get to, but let's start with Michael Porter Jr. 31 points in 24 minutes. On 11 of 16 from the field, 6 of 9 from 3, 3 of 3 from the stripe, 2 assists, 1 rebound, 2 steals, plus 23. Look, we always talk about, like, well, he's got to rebound in order for him to contribute something else. If he plays like that, he doesn't have to rebound because he was so locked in on both ends. He made plays off the dribble. He didn't just make shots. He created good shots. He knocked them down as well. He was locked in on the defensive end. His energy was great. His focus was great. Phenomenal performance from Michael Porter Jr.?
I'm glad you brought up all those things, in particular the driving to the basket, because while he didn't have a ton of them, I think it was like 3 different drives, they still stand out because so much of what he's done has just been catch and shoot or come off screen or whatever. And to see him kind of get to the lane, Euro step, do little things, that was nice. And this was the take I had on the DNVR show, Matt, and I just want to hear your opinion on it. It seems to me like Porter's points hit different than most people's, in that when Porter is on fire or when he's scoring at volume like he was in this game, the Nuggets tend to be up 20. Meaning, like, for whatever reason, his points feel like a value add that pushes Denver to this other level. And last night, of course, he has 31 points. Denver's up 20 the entire time he's on the court.
If Jokic has a certifiably bad game, which it doesn't mean he's scoring or not, just if he has a bad game,
Right.
then the Nuggets floor has dropped out beneath them.
100%.
If Jokic has a pretty good game and Jamal has a good game, then the Nuggets are in a good position.
But even then, though, man, I feel like there's been times where both of those guys have played well and they eke out a win or whatever.
I'm agreeing. I'm agreeing. If Michael Porter Jr. has it, they are blowing out teams.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
that's what I mean.
I totally agree with you. Like, because it really is. That's why you want the third star. It's all right. We handled the 2-man game and we cover, and Nicola's not killing us on the inside, and we're doing all these really good things. You're kidding me. Now this guy's hitting shots off the dribble, like not just spot ups, right? Because a lot of that is Joker created. Even when MPJ takes contested ones, you mentioned the Euro step and getting to the basket. The most impressive one to me was the kick out, pump fake, drive to the free throw line, pull up jumper. Like, that's a shot that Adam, 9 times out of 10 from NBA players, I'm like, okay, but like, I don't know that that's a good shot. I don't know how many of those you want to take. With MPJ, that was when I knew I was like, oh, like MPJ's there. Like they're gonna kill this team because MPJ is at that level. Like that's because he is such a great shot maker. If he can just coordinate to get to those types of shots, it means the defense is just helpless. There's nothing. They can't make adjustments. They can't just focus on, all right, we got to double and then rotate. We got to watch the backside for that corner whip from Jokic on the post. We got to, we need to switch in the 2-man game. There's no counter for it. There's no, you can't handle the pressure that Jokic and Jamal put on you and MPJ. It's going to overwhelm you, and it did.
Yeah, I still think for me it's getting to the rim. I just want to see him get to the rim, and he hasn't necessarily got there a whole lot this year. He was his rookie season, 34% of his shots were at the rim. His sophomore season, 23%. This year, only 17%. So it's a career low by a large margin. So for me, it's still wanting to see him get to the rim like he did last night. But it's encouraging because I just think it was Porter has played so well within the flow of the offense. I still don't think, for whatever flaws you can say he's had this year or things you haven't liked about his game, the one thing I don't think you can say in any game is that he's had bad shot selection, including last night. So for me, part of his not getting to the rim probably has something to do with him just not pressing. Like going to the rim, you're pushing the, you're being aggressive. You maybe are stepping outside the lines. So part of me wonders if that's why he hasn't been getting into the rim, is because he's being hyper, maybe overcorrecting to stay within the lane. But last night, all of his drives I thought were within the flow of the offense. They were the right kind of aggressive. And to me, that's what's so encouraging. And it's also encouraging, what he said after the game, which was he knew he had a bad game in Boston. He actually said, Matt, and we didn't, we focus so much, and I think rightfully so. I don't like using the sort of like distraction thing too much, even though I know it is a big part of it. But after the game, he really said that's what it was. Like, he got robbed while he was in Indiana and lost some personal items. And he mentioned after the game, like, I let that get to me in the Boston game. I know I wasn't at my best. That's why I played so poorly. And I knew I had to separate and get those off. And so he came into the nights like, I'm not going to be distracted. When I'm on the court, I'm focused. I'm guessing that was a bigger distraction for him than we gave credit for, that we sort of discussed. Nonetheless, it was nice to see him recognize that, overcome it, and then have a bounce back game.
Yeah. I mean, Singer reported that he texted Malone and apologized. And
yeah,
he's got such a better approach this season, and he's got such a better approach from a focus, intensity, and it's important to keep him involved and to do, like, there's got to be give and take here because he's giving a lot right now. Like that's kind of where I'm at, is like, it's important that they keep giving him opportunities and keep giving him things that he wants, whether it's, and now like he's talked about it, about how the teammates are looking for him. Like his shot, he's not getting a low number of shots, right? But opportunities to create, opportunities to be the player that he wants to be, because he's trying so hard to be the player they want him to be. And I think that that's really meaningful. I think it's No Name is God said MPJ just said on Road Tripping that they had a few hours of sleep before the Boston game. So
I don't understand why though. That doesn't make sense. Because I was trying to figure this out. Did they stay in Indiana an extra night and then not travel to the following night? That would seem like really weird road trip planning to me. If they had 2 days off, that's what I'm trying to say, is they had 2 days off. So if you don't schedule your flight for the following evening, that would be very strange to me. But
maybe Malone wants to go to one of Indiana's legendary steakhouses. Maybe that was like, maybe that was the reason. I could see that being the case. Great steakhouses in Indiana. Let's take a break. We'll come back and we'll talk more about the game and about the context of it, the performance all the way through, and what we kind of learned from a really great bounce back performance versus Chicago. We'll do that when we come back on Locked On Nuggets. But first, I need to tell you about LinkedIn Jobs. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business, and you want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. In my experience, a lot of times hiring, it winds up being random. It's, oh, I found this resume, this one, I had time to look through resumes on lunch, whatever it was, instead of actually going through the process of finding the best candidate. And that's why LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. You get to look for the things that you actually care about with the questions that actually get you to the people that you want to interview. You add your job, and they use simple tools like screening questions that make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience, so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. The whole process takes just a few minutes. It goes by really quick. It's not a whole big intensive thing where you have to go through 30,000 different templates. You put the things that you want up, you get slid in for free, and you've got that thing up on LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnba. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnba to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. We'll be right back on Locked On Nuggets. Back here on Locked On Nuggets. Thanks for joining us and making us part of your day. Appreciate you guys being with us on a Monday. Optimism Monday! And it's certainly a time for optimism. Tyson says the plane was delayed, but that was the night before. So maybe they just got rescheduled. I'm not sure how they.
I'm just saying it's a weird. I don't like to buy that excuse because it seems weird. But again, I don't know. The travel is tough. Nonetheless, I still contextualize the Boston game as they played a team that brought more physicality, toughness, whatever. I don't get too much. I don't think I will factor in some of that other stuff into the analysis too heavily.
I agree with you. I think you gotta, at some point it's like, look, things go wrong and you still gotta find, like, that's the thing, that this is the thing. It can't always be the perfect conditions for you to win, right? Like, you're gonna have to find ways to get it done.
And that's why I'm impressed with Porter's comments after the game and with how he bounced back. Like, you can't give him credit for the one without taking away from the other. So
sure. Great
bounce back. Feel like he learned a good lesson. And honestly, Michael Porter, to me, the season has been him demonstrating lessons learned along the way. So far.
That's a great take. I said this to vote. You remember 2 years ago, he had that horrible Boston game. Do you remember that?
I don't.
In February, I think it was February of 2020, before the run, before the trade deadline, he had like his worst performance, and it was like he was clearly in his head, and we were just like our show was basically like, is this gonna work? Like, is this doable? And he was in a big slump, and that was like the low point. And after that is where he started to get, and then he went on that insane run leading into, they traded for Gordon, and everything was clicking red hot.
Man, your memory's so good. He has 0 points at Boston, 7 rebounds, 3 assists, but 0 for 8 shooting.
Yeah. Yeah. And we were like, and he looked like he turtled, for lack of a better term.
He followed it up with double-digit scoring every game for the rest of the year until the final 2 games. So, man, good job, Matt.
Yeah. So it reminded me a lot of that whole sequence, but it's also kind of a look, I don't want to get too ahead of ourselves here as it is November 14th, but I'm just saying if the Celtics were to make the finals and the Nuggets were to make the finals, just store that one away in the back of your back of the memory bank just in case.
I will say this though, to kind of put a bow on the Porter thing, like this is why we love sports. And it's funny, like narratives, that's like almost a bad word, but this is a narrative that I think is very true and very interesting so far this season. And that is that Michael Porter has had such a weird career arc, missing his first year redshirting, missing last year, because of injury, the ups and downs. I honestly and sincerely feel like Michael Porter has demonstrated a very different approach this year than any other year. And there's some of this is same result, right? Like different approach, same result, some of the defense stuff. But a lot of it is his shot selection has been so deliberate, so focused. You could tell it's so important to him that he finally sees like, no, I want to be this. His defensive effort last night was phenomenal. You could tell he wants to. And Michael Malone, by the way, after the game, it was actually funny. His press conference, I think everyone should go and watch, because after the game, he had an interesting comment saying, I know Michael Porter cares about defense. His effort, he almost said it exasperated because it's like the defense hasn't been great. But he's like, but I know he cares. Like he wants it. He wants to be a good defender. And so I just think that this year, I mean, it is early. It is only 14 games. But I just think Michael Porter's approach has been, A+, to be honest with you. Like I don't really have any problems with his approach. The outcome of it hasn't necessarily been there. But guess what? If you have the right approach, over 82 games, you're going to make an enormous amount of improvement in all of the areas that you're approaching things correctly.
27-year-old me, when I started writing, would just blanch at me saying this because it's such an old school writer thing to say, but it's just something I've gotten to in my decrepit age is Porter this season's about the right things.
Yeah.
He's about the right things.
Yeah.
And in general, I think this team is about the right things. And I think that's one of the reasons why they've been successful. And it's one of the reasons why I have a lot of confidence in them. Look, Porter, it's a long season, and guys, you have to have like a resistance to those impulses, right? The Simmons talks about the disease of me, which I don't think is necessarily like a wrong thing. I think that there's like a temptation, and for MPJ in particular, I think there's a temptation to always be a little bit concerned about like, what does my career look like? But he got the money, and he really seems to understand like, I can do something awesome here. Like we could win a title, and I want to be a part of that. And that buy-in matters. There are guys that are just like, yeah, sure, a title, but like I want to be a star. And MPJ seems to very much be in like, why not both? Like I can be a star, I'm good enough, and we can win. But I have to sacrifice and be about the right things and hope that they reward me with that. And it's working so far.
I think it's also funny. Like Jokic was looking for him a lot last night, especially when he got heated. Like I just thought he was going to him nonstop. I know these things can be overstated. Jokic took 4 shots last night. Jokic is leading the team in scoring with 20 points per game, and Michael Porter's at 18. I think it probably really is a loud message to send when your 2-time MVP takes 4 shots and just keeps looking for you nonstop. Like, hey, man, you'll get there. I don't care about scoring. I'm glad you do. We're going to try to get you shots or what have you. But I do think that it's easy to buy in for people when Jokic plays the way he has so far this season of just clearly not caring about his own personal points per game and just getting everybody going.
Jamal, I thought was great. Again, 9 of 18 from the field for 23 points. I thought he was really good. The second unit stint was bad. I kind of wonder if they need to it's the slippery slope of, you need to stagger. You need to at least have one starter. Well, okay, the one starter is a little bit rough. You need to have 2 starters on the floor. Okay, well, maybe we need some defense. We need 3. And then it's just like, we're just going to play our starters 45 minutes like the Raptors.
Right.
So
it is a slippery slope.
It's a slippery slope. But in general, I thought Jamal, in this game more than anything was just the starters are absolutely unstoppable versus 99% of NBA teams. And if the bench unit only has one bad stint, it's fine. Like, really impressed with the bounce back from the bench again in the second half. They've done this a lot where it's like the first stint is that same terribleness and the second stint's fine. And I think that's pretty impressive. No bones and no ish makes it tough on Jamal. I think it's accurate. I think he's better in the second unit when he shifts to a backup role. You're kind of shaking your head a little bit. So you disagree on the bench thing?
I mean, they were up 30 points. Like, it's just the second stint was good, but the game was literally over. Like, there was no blowing that lead in that stretch. So I don't know.
Last year's bench says challenge accepted.
we're gonna talk about this in the other segment, and I can't wait for it. I'm actually very excited. But I want to actually, more importantly, though, more interestingly, last night represented. We've seen this a few times. The Nuggets have 3 rotations they can go to when everybody's healthy. I mean, you have your starters, right? But then you also have your starters with Bruce Brown in for MPJ, which has sort of been the default closing lineup. We love that lineup. It gives some versatility, and it gives Porter to the bench, which has had mixed results, to be honest with you, so far. Some nights it looks like the perfect move, but it hasn't fully felt like Porter has elevated that bench unit fully, right? It's hit or miss still. Then you have what we saw last night, which I thought, by the way, Matt, I thought that was because Bones was out that Malone went into the game with this plan. He said after the game, it was just because Michael Porter was on fire that he's like, you know what, I'll leave him out there. I'll bring Jamal Murray out. So you put Bruce Brown in for Jamal Murray. That unit to me, and the numbers actually don't bear this out, so this is a little bit of an eye test versus the numbers, although the sample size is so small. We'll see. It feels like the ball pops a lot more when Bruce Brown is in there in Jamal Murray's spot. Not that it's more effective, just that they play a different brand of basketball. And I think that Michael Porter has shined in those moments. Going all the way back to the preseason, you remember the game where Jamal Murray missed and Jokic and Porter played and Brown started. Michael Porter played very well in that game as well. So I wonder, you basically have 3 rotations, your regular starters, your Porter off, and your Murray off, both with Bruce Brown replacing him. And all 3 of those have been dynamite, A-plus lineups, and all 3 of them play in different ways, and different guys shine in them. And I'm kind of curious I don't know what the right thing is. Is it to figure out which one of those you want to go to? Is it to mix it up every game? Or is it to mix it up every half? Could you play the first half with Jamal Murray staggering with the bench and the second half with Michael Porter staggering with the bench? I'm curious. I don't know what the answer is, but I kind of hope Malone plays with that because I like all 3 of those looks.
The best thing about this is what we've always talked about with finding different solutions for the problems that present in front of you. And this is something where I think Malone's done it's really crazy because I was super critical of Malone last year.
Right.
So they had a bad season. And it's just been, I talked about it on last week's show. We were talking about Malone, the solo I did on the weekend. And there's a lot of comments about how much people were pleased with Malone this season, which is rare for anyone to say anything nice about an NBA head coach. And so, but I think this is one of the challenges that's in front of Malone is he's got to be really on point with halftime adjustments. And with these, because for me, it's what you said at first, which is figuring it out by what the game needs. Are you in a spot where you have a size advantage with MPJ and they're running 3 guards? So guess what? MPJ is gonna be able to rise and fire over all of them because he's got a height advantage. Is it a really strong defensive unit and you need players that have a really tight handle and can play mistake free? I think that's where you want Jamal, maybe more with the bench. These types of dynamics I think are really important of figuring out. And this goes with the thing that we saw in some sequences too, where they've gone small with Jeff Green at the 5 versus do you go to DJ and try and go bigger? Those types of options for the bench as well. Not even to win your minutes, but just to stabilize. And with the starters, I think it also gets into, okay, look, I think we can get an advantage here with Bruce with the starters before Jamal comes back in the 4th. Let's run that to set us up because he's been doing really well. And then we'll transition back to the starters at the end. I think having those options on the table are really important. Go ahead.
What I was going to say is I feel like the ball finds Michael Porter more when Bruce Brown is in for Jamal Murray, naturally, because he's the second best scorer. Then, when he's on the court, him and Jokic are the top 2 scorers. So naturally, but also not having a point guard means less pick and roll, which means you're just running more continuity offense, right? You're relying more on it inevitably. And so the ball finds him a little bit more. That's not a knock on Jamal. Again, I've a million times. The Murray Jokic 2-man game is the best offense in the NBA.
You need that. Yeah.
You need that. So this is why I just say I kind of like that look. And it sounds like Malone only went to it because Porter was on fire. But part of me wonders if it's just a thing that you could go to. And then again, Malone, I think, likes to close close games with Porter on the bench. And that just seems like his security blanket. So that's why I wonder if you could get a rotation whereby Murray is the first one to the bench in the first half, but Porter is the first one to the bench in the second half, which naturally lends itself to you having him finish the game on the bench, or at least having that option. And then lastly, there's something too. Most teams have a pretty set rotation. And I think because it's so different what the bench looks like with Porter out there or with Murray out there, I just wonder if it's a thing that becomes equally as effective but different and harder to scout because you have to like basically scout 2 rotations. You have to be like, we don't know if the Nuggets are going to play Porter with the bench tonight or Murray. And if they play Murray, we have to do this, this, and this. And if they play Porter, then it's completely different. We have to do this, this, and this. It might be a thing we're trying out. Maybe over larger sample sizes, those normalize, and one of those options is clearly better. I don't know. I just like them all right now, and I would love to see it a little bit more.
Even though MPJ was amazing, I do want to say my favorite sequence was the 2-man game, Jamal back to Jokic to Gordon underneath for the reverse dunk. Just simple perfection, execution. Just
Murray's had the flip over the shoulder pass to Jokic more than I remember him having. I mean, maybe I've just forgotten because he's always had good pocket passes or whatever, but he's doing a little flip pass to Jokic right now in the pick and roll. That's like, it's saucy. On rewatch, I mean, he had a lot of assists last night, right? I think he had, 10 assists? Nope, I was wrong. He only had 2 assists last night. It was the game before he had 10 assists.
Just shy. Let's take a break. We'll come back and we'll talk about the bench and get some of your questions. And there's some questions about MPJ resting and things like that. We'll do that when we come back on Locked On Nuggets. But first, I need to tell you about BetOnline, your number one source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. Get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there. From football to basketball to soccer and esports, we've got it all at betonline.net. Had another banner day betting NFL. My record is absolutely absurd this season. I'm super proud of it. I also bet on the Lakers to cover versus the Nets because of LA Nightlife. And once again, LA Nightlife is undefeated. If you love sports podcasts, you can find those at BetOnline as well. They're the fastest and easiest way to get your betting fix. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. We'll be right back on Locked On Nuggets. Back here on Locked On Nuggets. Thanks for joining us and making us part of your day. Appreciate you guys being with us on a Monday for Optimism Monday. Lot to be optimistic about. What's up?
The Lakers, I'm just looking at this. This is so ridiculous. Actually, they are at home. The Lakers are 2-1 on Sunday games with a 1 loss, a 106-104 narrow loss to Portland at home, which Portland's a good team. And 1 and 9 in all other games. So 2-1 on Sunday games is hilarious. They're almost 3-0 on Sunday games, which would have been really, really, really a hilarious one.
Yep. That's a trend. I'll just say that I've done a lot of research into, and it's been long-term profitable. Don't know what it is. There's something about teams being in LA on a Saturday night that tends to cause some problems, no matter how bad the Lakers are. Just weird. It's crazy. Don't know what that could be. Guess it's the tides. So you had something you want to talk about with the bench. I want to bring something up. So from the 12-minute mark to 5:16 third quarter, the Nuggets were actually -1. So they had the lead at half. They were up big at half. They had like a 15-point lead. But the start of the third, they're actually -1 when they go to the bench. And then the lineup of Porter, Brown, Jokic, Gordon, KCP goes 9-0, and that puts it away. You're right. But I kind of just keep going back to, I do think that the bench, it's been very rare that I've seen the bench have 2 consecutive bad stints. Am I wrong on that?
I mean, I think so. The bench, here's the thing. A lot of people this week have written or discussed things as like how the bench has been, good this year or whatever. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, no, it has not. It's actually been really, really bad. And here's the stat I wanted to bring up for you, Matt. Last year, Facu Campazzo was a team worst -8.6 net rating. This year, DeAndre Jordan has a -8.6 net rating. It's the exact same. And again, that doesn't tell the entire story, but the numbers actually match up from like the best bench player to worst bench player. If you just put those in order, they match last year's, where Facu being at the low end, DeAndre at the low end, and then everyone just slightly above, but nobody good. That's how it's been this year. And I know it's early. The bench has had some really bad games that have maybe weighed that down a little bit. Again, maybe it normalizes over time. But to me, my confidence level in the bench is still really low. The one thing I will say is that Bones, I think, has been sneaky effective this year. He's had some bad games, but he's missed a lot of time. And this is one of the things you're worried about, is Bones is having this very 3 games on, 1 game off, 3 games on, 1 game off right now. Last night, I would have loved to have seen what it looked like with Bones and Murray out there. I like that Christian Brown's starting to get minutes. I think he is going to help that bench unit. But I don't feel as good about the bench as most people seem to right now. And I'm kind of surprised people are writing benches solved articles and podcasts and different things.
So I'll say this. I was going to make this point before you kind of brought it up. Like, this is something that I wrote down in my notes last night, is just like, look, does DeAndre Jordan look good to me on eye test? Yeah, I don't find a lot of, like, everyone's gonna be like, that one possession in the Celtics game, but there's just like a lot of possessions. And
I'll say this: I think the entire Celtics game was bad. If it was just that one possession, I could write it off. He had a bad game. He had a bad game.
The gross total of possessions from DeAndre Jordan have been fine. Like, I'm not like, no, DeAndre Jordan's good. I'm just like, no, it's fine. Like, it's backup center, it's fine. I can't on one side of my mouth preach, look, it doesn't really matter what it feels like. If the numbers say that you're losing these minutes, and then be like, yeah, but it looks good with DJ. I can't do that. Right. So the reality is like, they're on pace to lose with DeAndre Jordan about what I thought. I said before the season, I was like, they're going to be minus 59 with Jordan by Christmas. They're on pace to be minus 59 with Jordan by Christmas. Like, that's the pace. That's what they're on pace to be in raw net. Like, and so on some level, maybe it's just like not working. Maybe that's like the straight end part of it. Most people that talk about the bench talk about shot creation and about spacing and these types of things.
Yep, you're right. Those things seem louder to me than.
I think. Look, I'm fine with giving. I at this point I want him to give Zeke a look just so we can answer the question. I just want to answer.
It's funny because, again, that's not the thing I'm trying to advocate here. This is what I hate, is setting Zeke up for failure in those ways of like, okay, we'll see if you can do this. Like that is by no means what I'm getting at here. And I agree with you, by the way. DeAndre Jordan, I do think early season, the Nuggets net rating as a team right now is like +1 or something. It's really bad, despite the fact that they're number 1 in the Western Conference. But that's because there's been a few games where Denver lost by 20 points. There's been a few games where the bench got outscored 13-0. So their numbers are going to be bad. And that's why I say maybe it'll normalize, because they've actually been good for most of their minutes, or okay for most of their minutes. But when they've been bad, they've been really, really bad.
Yeah, and I will say I lean a little bit towards, I think this is a variance thing. I think that the Portland game absolutely obliterated some of their stuff. There's a couple of others that just like, it was so bad that it's weighing pretty heavily. And I've seen this, like, if you look at, there's a reason why even Memphis, who I don't think is necessarily great, their numbers are all truncated, are a little bit stagnated, because the Dallas Mavericks obliterated them on a Saturday night back-to-back. Like,
no, man, it's crazier. Go through it. They have 4 losses. They're 9-4. Great record. Number 1 in the West. They lost by 21 points on opening night, 25 points to Portland, 11 points to the Lakers, and 19 points to Boston. Like, when they lose by 20.
Yeah. With DJ, I'm looking at his game log right now. He was minus 13 in the opener. He was minus 10 versus the Lakers in the home win. He was plus 11 in the second game versus Utah. He was minus 11 in the second Lakers game. So he was minus double digits in both of those. And the other double digit one that he had was San Antonio minus 9. Now, it's like, if you're in double digits when you're playing less than 25 minutes, that's bad, right? Like, that's really bad. There's a bunch of like minus 5s in here. Like, he was minus 5 versus Chicago, minus 5 versus Boston.
Minus 5 in 9 minutes, though. I mean,
I know, but I just wind up, my big thing just winds up being like, we've talked about this before. If you have $500 million in the starting unit, I don't expect the bench to win their minutes. I just don't. Yeah. So this is important though. Is like, what's the bar, right? Is like, what's the bar you got to get to in order for it to feel like it's okay? If it's, per 15 minutes is a question. That's like the average bench stint, right? Is like, what's the number to where you're okay? Minus 5 is a threshold across 15 that I'm okay with. 9, no, that's terrible. My like minus 5 and 15 minutes is fine to me across basically 7.5 minutes per half. That's okay to me. So like, what's I think I think this is something that everybody's going to disagree on. Like, I think everybody's going to have, some fans are going to be like, I want them to be neutral. Like, I want them to be 0. And I'm going to be like, I don't know how you do that with $500 million in the starting unit,
I mean, I think that part's a little overstated, just because you're still playing one starter with the bench. So then you're talking about the 4 other guys. And then it's not like they don't have the talent. Nonetheless, it is important to kind of contextualize that the Nuggets do have a lot of money wrapped up in that first one. To me, though, the biggest thing is Bones has now missed 4 games. And they've come like, he played 6 games, he missed 2. He played 3, he missed 2. I just want to see an extended stretch with Bones out there, just because again, you stagger MP. Do we know if Bones and MPJ work? Like, they haven't played very many games in a row together yet. Do we know if Bones and Murray work? They haven't played enough games in a row. Like one bad game here or there, and you go, oh, it doesn't work. I hope that we get a little bit of momentum, even if it's just like 10 games in a row where you get the same look where you're like, okay, this is what they do.
Yeah, and I'll say I think even in stabilizing it, the second unit, I know it's like Bones is more important from a long-term perspective. They have a cluster injury. Both of their backup point guards are hurt.
Oh,
and
great point. Yeah, great point.
Like, again, if it's just like Ish Smith hasn't looked great when he's played this season, and like whatever, he hasn't really played any sort of meaningful time.
Yeah.
One of the things that I kind of advocated for with Ish was just like his baseline competency of running an offense and game by game being able to do a few things. Like, there will absolutely be nights when Ish is terrible and a minus whatever and it's awful. It's about, do you do it over the course of 10 games? Like, that's the big thing here, is like over 10 games, can the bench be decent enough to where the starters aren't always having to dig out of a hole?
Right.
That's really the thing here.
Right.
I will say, like, it's weird because this win would feel a lot better 2 years ago, 3 years ago, right? And I feel like your general sense is like, yeah, they're good. They should be good. They're awesome.
Oh no, this was a good game. Like, I'm maybe I'm misrepresenting my take here, but I think this was a good one. Like, you smack a team and you play well. And again, you mentioned how it got to 4 or something and you felt like it was close. The only reason I never felt that way is because I felt like Jokic was so good in this game that he picked the way he wanted to dominate and dominated it. And we've seen him enough where if it did get close, I think Jokic would have had a little 6-0 run. He was so comfortable. He was setting this is why when Michael Porter caught fire, I almost felt like Jokic was calling ISOs for Michael Porter. Meaning not really ISOs, but he was just saying like, hey, we're going to run the Porter stuff right now. Okay. Everybody be happy. KCP didn't get a ton of shots. That doesn't matter. Everybody, we're just going to run the Porter plays for a little bit and see if we can't get him feeling good. And it worked.
Yeah. Christian Brown, good minutes. 3 of 6 in the field, 9 points, usual great defense and intensity, +4. Thought he played really well. Jeff Green.
He's up to 37.5% from 3, by the way. So nice. I know it's 6 of 16, so that's a better way.
No, but that's promising. It's a good start. And I thought Jeff Green, the post-ups in the second half were really good. I thought Jeff was, again, if Jeff can play more in the first half like he plays in the second half, they're going to be in much better shape.
It's funny, man. I said this on the show last night, but the play that they ran for Michael Porter 2 years ago, it's a little ISO play. They now only run for Jeff Green. And Jeff Green's really good he's a better ISO player than Michael Porter. But it is interesting that I haven't seen him run it for Porter yet once this year. So just kind of an interesting thing. Like, the team is kind of giving him this play.
I'll give this point real quick, as Amora mentioned it. A center who can run DHOs and play a similar role to Jokic like Plum Dog would be nice. I continue this is why I was really frustrated when Malone basically blew off my question about what the bench's identity is. This continues to be a problem. To me, there's a huge disconnect, and there's an adjustment period when guys try and go from playing with Jokic and how they play with Jokic. Even like the starters that come back in are so much more used to playing with Nikola, and it's another league it's another world, it's another universe of basketball. And if they had a really strong point guard center combo, because I was arguing with some folks last night on Twitter, I was like, look, Monte Morris, Mason Plumlee was a reliable pick and roll duo for the bench. We were never like, boy, the bench was just like obliterated every single night, because those two could just be like, yeah, we're just going to run pick and roll and we'll create shots and we'll look like a normal NBA offense. And the absence of any sort of cohesion between the first unit and the second, like, you have two options. You either need to find a Jokic replicator, which you're never going to find anybody that could be as good as him. I'm just saying, like, big that can pass. That's it. That's all I'm saying. Not like great passer, like can functionally pass.
Yeah.
Right. Spread the floor a little bit. Or you need to like zero in on a point guard center combo that you're just gonna run 2-man to death. They need to have some sort of, because even in the good games, it's like, well, yeah, Jeff Green got some post-ups, or Bones hit some threes from 90 feet out. Like, in my opinion, the bench would be best served by having some sort of identity. And I don't know if that's a personnel problem or a style. I think that there's personnel there to have a better identity than what they've had.
I think so too. Again, I think Bones is a big part of the identity. I know even when he's been there, they still are looking for their identity. But I think that, again, over time, I'm hopeful they can get 10 games in a row with Bones there. Of all the players that can miss, Bones is the one that most they probably need to discover what that identity is. Like if Jeff Green missed 5 games, he can be replaced, and I don't think it would change the overall identity. Maybe it changes the effectiveness, but it wouldn't change the identity. Bones, to me, like I just want to see it for a little bit because I still am hopeful, Matt, that the Bones Porter combo discovers an identity and that becomes like something interesting. We haven't seen it at all really this year. We've seen those guys together, but they haven't meshed in the way that I'm kind of hoping for. So hopefully we see that over the coming games. And by the way, home away affects everybody. I think it affects benches more than anyone.
Oh, I like that take. Yeah.
And so maybe Denver's only played 4 home games. That's the craziest thing about their 13-game schedule. So maybe this is a thing that the bench really discovers an identity mid-December to mid-January when they have all those home games.
That's a great point. Josh, as given the last game, would people be happier with Drummond instead of DJ? This actually feeds back into my point. DeAndre Jordan makes the veteran minimum about $1 million a year. Andre Drummond signed for $8 million. Like, this is your gap, right? Like, if you could afford an $8 million backup center, you'd probably be in a little bit better shape. Steve says, boy, Boogie must be an enormous cancer if he's not back on the squad. I would pay attention to the team that DeMarcus Cousins is on this season, which is no one. He's unsigned in the NBA. I don't know how much better it would be.
I know, by the way, who was the Boogie Whisperer as a coach? Who's the one coach that got through to him?
Michael Malone.
And if he's not even back here, like probably tells you a little bit of something. So we'll see.
Yep.
Boogie was like, people say this sometimes, like Boogie was awesome last year. He dominated. Yeah. Are you kidding me? Yeah. We all saw it. By the way, I'm not reporting that I knew. I mean, there's a few things I know from behind the scenes. It must have been way worse than even what has been like mentioned off record, because I don't understand why he's not on a team other than he's not on any team. So word must be out.
Yeah. Someone says Dwight Howard equally. It's just not.
What about Shaquille O'Neal?
The vibe.
The vibes one would be a great fit.
The vibes are. How about? Well, if we're going this route, actually, how about Andrew Bynum? Let's just go.
Andrew Bynum. He's actually only like 36 or something, right? Andrew Bynum. He's really young still.
I just. The vibes are good right now.
Oh man, this is such a great take. This is such a great.
Don't be surprised, Boogie somehow with the Wolves. Oh boy! Wow,
this is such a great take.
He turns around the Wolves season.
Chris Finch, Tim Conley, like here we go.
Yep. A lot of connections there. All right, have yourselves a great day. Hope you guys have a good time. I'm about to jump on Green Dot Daily on the Action Network app. If you guys want to check that out, talk some NBA betting, and. You can follow all of Adam's work over at DNVR. Check out all the great work over there. We'll be back tomorrow with another episode. Practice should be tomorrow. We'll probably have a recap from that on Wednesday. Hope you guys have a great week. We'll see you guys again.